Today we're going to talk about a Nissan Frontier pickup truck. Often the forgotten pickup truck. They can be very good trucks to buy used. Now the Frontier started out as the replacement for the old Nissan hard body that had little 4 cylinders. They could run forever just like the little bitty Toyota pickup trucks, right? When they started making the Frontiers, they added one big thing. And here it is under the hood. Nissan V6 engine. You can carry, you can tow. They're very good engines. The new ones put over 300 horsepower. They are screaming motors. They're very reliable. Instead of the hard body, which is a little truck, they could last a long time just like a Toyota Tacoma, but they're kind of underpowered. These are not underpowered. Now, this is an older one, and unfortunately, it's still got a rubber timing belt in it. Modern ones have timing chains in them. Well, he just had this replaced, mainly because of the age, and it's got almost 100,000 miles. It's 96,000 miles. If that rubber belt breaks, pistons hit the valves, goodbye engine. So he had that changed out, so he's not going to have to worry about it. It's only a problem if you don't take care of it. It gets old and rotten and cracks and breaks, and there goes your engine. So if you're looking at one of these, if it's got a timing chain, you don't have to think about it. But if it's got a belt, good idea to change it if it's got 100,000 miles, or if it's 8-10 years old. That's a good thing to do. Over the course of time, the back of the frame rotted. You can see here where they've done welding. You did have to have this replaced because it did rot away. Toyota had the same problem with the Tacomas and some of the Tundras. So if you're looking at one of these used, definitely check the frame. Now there's a lot of superficial rust here, but it's still solid. I'd sand all that down and recoat it myself just to make it last longer. Make excellent work trucks because they got full-size beds. Yeah, the plastic fades away. Plastic liner's still good on it. They're great for hauling stuff. He's never towed with it. But if you want to tow, this baby can tow 6,300 with their automatic transmission, 6,500 if you have a manual. And he was smart, he bought it used. Here's the thing. People I say, Scotty, I want to get a Toyota Tacoma or a Toyota Tundra, but the prices are so insanely high. People are now paying more for used Tacomas than a new one goes for in many cases. You got a good price on this years ago, and it's been a good truck. You're going to find a much better price on a Frontier than you are on a Tacoma or a Tundra. For sure. That's just how it goes. The Toyotas, people like them, prices go up, they just start charging more and more and more. But these are solid trucks. It's not like they're problematical trucks. This is a 4x4 off-road. Ironically enough, the guy's never taken it off-road, but he uses it in Connecticut in the winter. He says it's a beast. He can get through all kinds of snow with it. And unlike the front-wheel drive Jatco transmissions, his grandmother had a Sentra in 2001. Tranny went out at like 70,000 miles. This is a rear-wheel drive transmission. And for my 53 years experience of working on cars, rarely do I see one of these Nissan rear-wheel drive transmissions break down. They make them better. They're kind of like old American cars. Americans made great transmissions for rear-wheel drive, but when they started to make front-wheel drives, they all fell apart. Didn't matter if it was Ford, GM, Chrysler, they were never any good at making front-wheel drive transmissions. Let's start it up and listen to it. Starts right up, it sounds pretty good. You just hear the valves and the cams rolling a little. Any engine is going to make a little bit of noise. It's not going to be perfect, but this one is in decent shape. Well, all the cars with these plastic headlamps are going to fog. You can polish those up if you want or buy aftermarket ones cheaply enough. But the 4-wheel drive still works perfectly fine. He's had no problems with that. You get the old scan tool out. Let's check this baby out. And here we go. It's going through everything. System diagnosis, 16 pin. It's 1% done. This might going to take a while. Well, while we're waiting for it to load, because it is older, he did have to replace the catalytic converter. Not because it tripped the catalytic converter code, because it rusted out. Nissan has a history of making crappy catalytic converters. All my customers with Nissans over the course of time, and Infiniti, same company, you got to buy catalytic converters because they just put cheap ones on. It's just the company went a little bit too cheap. Renault took over Nissan in 2000. The quality started to go down, and this is a 2003. It was after that, and he had to replace the catalytic converter because it just rotted away. It was so cheaply made. So watch out for stuff like that. And so far, you got a bunch of greens. Now, maybe an old vehicle, but everything was green except for the ABS system. Who really cares about that? But we'll see what it is. It says the front left-hand sensor has a problem. Yeah, the problem is it's 19 years old. When they get to be this old, and especially with rust, but it shows how well made this particular truck was. That was the only problem. We'll look at live data. It's hiding here somewhere. There it is. And here we go. We'll start looking to see if anything's weird. That's all green. And everything else is good too. Blue is the same as green. It means good. If it gets red, got a problem. They're all perfectly clean. We can feel a slight roll in the idle, and as you can see, the oxygen sensor on bank 1 and bank 2, they're slightly off. They're off by a tiny bit. It's not going to trip a code because it's got to be off 20% or more, and it's only off 0.21 of 1%, so that's not bad, but it shows that one side versus the other isn't exactly perfect. And from my experience with these, often the intake manifold will have a tiny leak on one side, not in the other, or one fuel injector's running a little bit off from the others. You could try putting a little fuel injector cleaner in it, but it runs perfectly fine. Most people aren't going to care about that. If it had been 5%, 10%, then you start thinking, but that's such a low percent, it really doesn't matter. Now as we close the door, got a nice solid sound, but got manual door locks. And for those of you who are young and don't understand, it has hand crank windows. Look at that. It's nice and high up in the air. Got that powerful V6 engine in it. It's still a very reliable truck. So we'll try the old engine out. It's got plenty of horsepower in it. No problem with that. As you can see, it still shifts really smooth. It still runs great. And yeah, it did have frame problems. So if you're looking at one of these used, look at the frame. Get under there. Check the frame out. Get a hammer. If it goes conk, conk, great. If it goes crunch, crunch, don't buy it. You don't want to mess with one with a rotten frame. But from my experience of these things, it's mainly up north where they rot. Because I never saw one in Texas or New Mexico or California that had a rotten frame on it. It's the salt on the road that they use in the winter here. And anything that's a little bit weak, it accentuates the rust and makes them rot out faster. So if you're disgusted by the high price of used Toyota pickup trucks, maybe try to get a Nissan Frontier used pickup truck. They can still be pretty good trucks and you can get them a whole bunch cheaper. Even though this is a 2005, it only had 35,000 miles on it when he bought it for about 8,600 bucks. So he got a pretty good deal out of this truck. It's got the classic Ford V6. It's a 3-liter V6. These things can run a long time. Now, of course, it lived at Harvard, so you're going to see a lot of corrosion on the metal. That doesn't mean anything by itself. We'll start it up. Starts right up. Runs like a dream. No shaking. And even though it's a Ford, the air conditioning still works. Even the exhaust is still in pretty good shape. Everything's still pretty solid. Surface rust, yeah, but it's just surface rust. It's solid underneath. You're gonna get superficial rust going down there around the wells. That's just how things are when you keep them up north. But the ratting back is really nice. I mean, it is really well made. Your tools in there. It's really good for handyman. Now, one of the reasons this guy bought this is because he doesn't trust mechanics. That's why I got in the business. He fixed it himself, and as you can see, an older vehicle like this is much simpler. It doesn't have all the complexity of a truly modern one. If you want to learn a little bit about fixing cars, you're not going to get ripped off. You can buy an older vehicle and take care of it. Consider this thing came with 30-something thousand miles on it. It's got a lot of life left on it. I've seen these engines at 200 and they're still going strong. Everything on this truck still works perfectly fine. And after all, it's a Harvard-educated truck. It's smarter than a normal truck. Now, this is something that I tell people all the time. If you can find any kind of company vehicle, they don't generally drive them that far. Hey, it was at Harvard. How far did they drive around the campus, you know? 15 years, they put 34,000 miles on the vehicle. There's a lot of life left in these cars. When you really think about it, this thing isn't all rusted out. Normally a Ford this age from Massachusetts would be a rust bucket, but it's not going on the highways all the time with all the salt. It's just staying around the campus. If you can find a business that's upgrading their vehicles, there's nothing wrong with buying their older one. Because realize, you want to get a nice ratting cap with all the toolboxes, you can pay as much as $13,899 for one. He bought the whole truck with only 35,000 miles for $8,500. So, let's just say, the guy got a deal. Now, as I said, this was made for Harvard University, and Fords don't normally come with these things. That was added on. When somebody customizes something, they generally pay a lot of money. You never see it back. This guy loves doing carpentry and fixing his own truck. You can't beat this deal. Somebody else paid for it, in this case Harvard University, and they have plenty of money, and he reaped the benefits of buying it when they were done with it. Rangers are good pickup trucks. Of course, you're going to pay a ton more if you're going to get a Toyota Tacoma or something like that, but they're pretty much set up about the same. And the V6 has plenty of power for pulling all his tools, anything he wants to pull with. You don't need a V8 for that. Now, if it was a 4-cylinder, yeah, it'd be a little bit underpowered. So if you're looking at one of these, you want to get the V6 because you're going to get more power, a longer lifespan. It's going to get a little bit better gas mileage than the V8 will, but you don't buy these for gas mileage. You buy these because you want something that's going to be able to do your job, get you where you're going. And even though this is an old vehicle, being a 2005, it was a fantastic deal for a guy who wants to do carpentry, fix cars, and have still something that's reliable. Even though it's old with that small amount of miles, believe me, these things are reliable. Around, like I say, you see the corrosion. That means those parts are all old, which means they're still working, even though they're the original ones. It's a Ford. All these parts are readily available. Alternator goes bad, starter goes bad. You can go to any auto parts store. Odds are they'll have it in stock. You can pop it on and away you go. It's not like you're getting some kind of oddball vehicle that, oh gee, where am I going to get parts? How am I going to fix this thing? They're easy to fix. The parts are readily and cheaply enough available too. They're not that expensive parts. The only real downside of these are you gotta check to see if frame is rusted and corroded. If you see that body's all rusted and flaking through, you don't buy one of these things because it will be destroyed. Let's say if this truck came from Buffalo, New York, and somebody used it every day, summer and winter, it'd be ready for the junkyard. It would be just falling off the body. So that's something you really got to look at if you're going to buy one of these things used. But if you can find a highly educated one like this Ranger from Harvard University, hey, jump on it. And he gets 19 miles a gallon when he's driving around on the highway with all this weight. That isn't bad. Of course, like I always say, don't just think miles per gallon. Think miles per dollar. Let's say you buy a brand new truck with a diesel engine that gets 29 miles a gallon. Well, $40,000, $50,000 buys an awful lot of gasoline. That's all I gotta say. So if you thought Ford pickup trucks were dumb, now you know. This particular one is a Harvard-educated pickup. Guy got a great deal on it. He'll probably be driving it for years to come, doing carpentry work, fixing cars. Don't have to buy something new to get reliability. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.